Choices, choices, choices. Much like life, leveling in WoW is full of them, and you can easily get overwhelmed by the amount. Fret not, as a seasoned WoW veteran, I'll explain everything you need to know about leveling in World of Warcraft. Right after creating your character, you'll be presented with your first choice, and that is choosing a starting zone, Exile's Reach or your race starting zone. Exile's Reach is newer and is very well made and engineered to introduce you to all the core mechanics of World of Warcraft and does so without wasting your time. Your race starting zone is more lore focused to your race, but is generally less efficient and does not explain mechanics at all. No matter what you choose, after hitting level 10, it's recommended to go to your capital city and choose whichever timeline you want to level in. Very convenient that you get a mount so you can travel faster. If you chose Exile's Reach earlier, you'll wind up at your capital anyway after finishing the quests. You can choose your timeline at Chromie. If you're a returning player and already know where you want to level and how to get there, you should still choose that timeline, because if you don't and you choose Old World content, it'll only scale to level 30. If you're a new player, just choose whatever seems interesting, but there are some considerations. If you want to level fast with quests, choose Warlords of Draenor, as the quests are densely packed and the zones have a lot of bonus objectives which reward a lot of experience. If you want to mostly do dungeons, then the Burning Crusade is a good choice, as the dungeons are fast and conveniently circle around to the entrance. I'll explain why that's important later. The other timelines can be chosen based on which ones have the most interesting lore or just which ones have interesting looking areas. You can look all of this up on Google and decide later. If you play through Exile's Reach, you'll automatically be put in the Battle for Azeroth timeline. But don't worry, no matter what you chose or didn't choose, you can always come back to Chromie later on and change the timeline. One more caveat: if you're choosing a timeline based on lore, keep in mind that you'll probably hit max level faster than you will finish the story. But don't be discouraged. If you want to finish the story, there is no harm in doing that. Just know that you won't be gaining any levels in the process. And you can also return later if you want to. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, so we'll do a quick recap before going on to the next section. First, you have to choose a starting zone. Exile's Reach for great explanations and a faster experience, and race starting zones for lore and atmosphere. After reaching level 10, mount up and go to your capital city and choose a timeline you want to level in. The timeline can be changed later on if you want to. Choose Vault for questing and Burning Crusade for dungeons. For lore, just choose whatever looks better while keeping in mind that you will outlevel the content. Got all that? Great! Now we get to talk about the different activities that reward you with experience. The main ones are questing, dungeons, and PvP battlegrounds. Yes, gathering professions also grant you experience, but while leveling this way is definitely possible, and there is a player who does it every expansion, I wouldn't recommend it for the general public as it's quite tedious. Questing is really straightforward. Pick up a quest, do the objectives, turn in the quest, pick up another quest. There are optimizations you can make, like picking up multiple quests that are all done in the same area and completing them together, and setting your Hearthstone in quest hubs so that you can quickly return to them. On Hearthstones, consider joining a guild just to get the passive that reduces your Hearthstone cooldown. Usually some guilds just invite players without ones automatically, but when reaching endgame, I don't recommend staying in these since they probably won't help you achieve your goals, whatever they may be. These are what the community calls cesspool guilds, and you really shouldn't be sticking around in one. Dungeons, unlocked at level 10, are in essence also very straightforward, but require a group of people to do. Conveniently, Blizzard made the Looking for Dungeon feature, where you can join a queue and you'll be automatically matched with players. Leveling dungeons are really easy, so don't be afraid of them even as a new player. Just a little bit of advice. If you're anything other than a tank, don't pull any mobs. People don't usually like that and they may kick you from the group. On getting kicked, look at the chat box every now and then just to see if anyone's complaining, and make sure to ask questions if the complaints are aimed at you. Most people will be willing to help you if you say that you are a new player and aren't sure what's going on. And if they don't lose any sleep over it. There are going to be some assholes in this world and that can't be helped. Just queue up for the next dungeon and forget about them. If you're a returning player, don't be alarmed if tanks, healers, or someone 20 levels lower than you is out DPSing you on charts. Blizzard now allows people from different levels to all join the same dungeon group to make them easier to find, and the tuning sometimes gets a little wonky. Dungeons grant you XP by killing the mobs, but you also get a lot of XP for completing the dungeon and often also get some bonus loot. And remember earlier when I was talking about dungeons looping around? Oftentimes, there will be some dungeon quests which can be acquired from the friendly NPCs at the beginning of the dungeon. These quests aren't too complicated and are usually completed automatically by just going through the dungeon how you normally would. After completing the dungeon, you have to turn in the quests as they reward a lot of XP and useful items. I think you can now start to see why looping back to the beginning is so useful, as it saves you a long trek through the whole dungeon. If you prefer the thrill of fighting players rather than a bunch of if statements masquerading as enemy AI, then Battlegrounds might be for you. They're probably the slowest leveling method of the three, but can be the most engaging and fun. You can't queue up for Battlegrounds much in the same way as you do for dungeons. To be honest, I don't usually level this way, so I don't have a lot to say. I do remember that a lot of players create so-called twinks, which are characters sitting at specific levels with optimized gear, which are a lot more powerful than you are. So if you're getting ruffle stomped in a roughy basin, don't cry over it, just blame the sweaty tryhards who do nothing but play WoW all day. I think we covered most of what you need to know, so here are just a few smaller tips to consider. Rested XP is the blue bar that appears over your normal XP bar if you log out for some time. What this means is that until the bar turns to purple again, you're getting double the amount of XP from mobs and gathering professions. This isn't huge, as the rested XP will cap at 150% of the XP you need to level up, but it is something to be considered, as you get more rested XP if you log out in an inn or a town. So if you know you're going to be logging out for an extended period of time, consider cozying up to a toasty fire in an inn before logging off. You can make sure that you're getting bonus rested XP if there are Z's hovering over your character portrait. There are add-ons that can help you while leveling, the main ones being Pawn, which highlight gear upgrades for you, and Speedy Autoloot, which just loots items faster. Also, remember to not rely on Pawn when you reach max level, as the recommendations at that point are not to be trusted. There are also add-ons which recommend which quests you should do in which order, but I think that kinda takes the fun away from leveling and is best used later on when you're raising your alt army. You can level your professions while on your journey, but this is generally ill-advised, since most of the relevant crafts are locked to the current expansion. That was quite a lot. I hope you got all that. While there are a lot of choices on how to level, you are never really locked into one, so if you don't like what you're doing right now, consider changing it, whether that be changing a timeline or going from dungeons to battlegrounds. Either way, I hope you enjoy your journey while reaching the endgame of World of Warcraft. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any suggestions, you can leave them in the comments. If you like this video, consider liking it. If you like my content, consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.